Hi everyone. You've probably heard the phrase, there is safety in numbers. It's often used to stress the importance of collective action or teamwork, especially when people realize that making a change alone is challenging or when they're seeking a reason to join forces. However, there's also an expression about a one-man army, meaning that even one person is capable of achieving a lot, capable of changing the lives of dozens of people, capable of literally moving mountains if it's ever needed. Today, we're going to talk about a man who proved that nothing is impossible for a determined person. His journey started in 1959 when 23-year-old Huang Jaffa returned to his hometown of Hongfa, in northern Husa province, China, after completing his studies in the city. Backstory: after several years away in what was deemed civilized society, he returned to his home village only to find it plagued by hunger. The villagers were impoverished, with their only relief from starvation coming from the potatoes and corn they cultivated. But the worst part was that the village had no water, the only well was drying up each year, and they used it in turns, barely enough to cook food. Therefore, they couldn't even grow the most basic grains of Chinese culture, such as rice. They simply didn't have enough water. Moreover, the whole village didn't even have the most basic utilities such as electricity, and of course, there were no roads as the village was cut off from civilization by a mountain. Ideas: the man had many ideas and wanted to change the situation like no one else. He thought people united by a common idea could turn the undeveloped, God-forsaken village into a modern and successful settlement. He couldn't have imagined at the time what hardships he'd face and how many years of his life it would take to turn his dream into reality. He aimed to greatly enhance the lives of his fellow villagers by setting ambitious goals, constructing a road, providing electricity, and addressing the water shortage. His dedication to these noble causes led the villagers to elect him as their village leader. That same year, the first thing that Huang did was search for a water source. He found one in the neighboring settlement, but it was located on the other side of a huge mountain. The village obviously didn't have money to build a canal, and the district authorities refused to allocate any money for it. Huang met with dozens of government officials before he realized that no one cared about his village or its villagers. After giving it some thought, he decided to build the canal through the mountain on his own. As he later said, his parents raised him to be a man of his word, so he couldn't go back on his promise. That's how Huang's battle with the mountain began. Armed with a pickaxe and some of the most primitive tools, the man began to make a tunnel in the mountain. Considering these pictures, it's astounding to think he dug the first 100 meters entirely on his own. The task was made even more challenging by the canal's path along the steep mountain slope, where the danger of falling was ever present. Failure: the villagers initially backed Huang's idea, but, as is often the case, when it came time to put in the effort, he was left alone with just his pickaxe and the mountain. It took more than 5 years for the locals to see the progress and start believing in the ambitious plan proposed by their village leader. Soon, other like-minded people began to join him, with the number of volunteers reaching almost 300 people eventually. 10 years later, the 200-meter canal in the mountain was ready, but to everyone's disappointment, it turned out that since the enthusiasts lacked knowledge of irrigation, all their work was in vain. The long-awaited vital water didn't come. Jumping ahead, I'll say that now this canal is used as a tunnel to shorten the path through the mountains, but the main goal still wasn't achieved. Perhaps someone else would have given up, especially after failing to deliver on his promise, but not Huang. Having failed, Huang went to the city for a few years to study the principles of water supply. After completing an internship at one of the hydroelectric power plants, he came back with the necessary knowledge and experience. He managed to persuade the district administration to allocate 60,000 won, about $12,000, to the impoverished village. Meanwhile, the villagers, still grappling with the relentless drought, contributed an additional $2,000. With this support, efforts to secure a water supply for the village were back on track. First canal: when Huang started constructing his first canal, he was just 23 years old. By the time he completed it, he was 58. It's as if Huang devoted his entire life to this canal through the mountains. He was a hostage of the canal at his own free will. He would later say that in those decades, he never once wanted to abandon his goals, regardless of how hard he had to work. Huang always knew that he had to finish the project. In 1992, the work on the second canal began, and this time, Huang was sure it would work. Once again, the work was mainly done by manual labor, but this time, they did use some light equipment. It took another 3 years to build the 7,200 meters of the canal and 2,200 meters of bypass canals. The canal traverses 3 mountains, 10 hills, and 3 additional villages. Despite the challenges, it was operational by 1995. By then, the other objectives, electricity and roads, had also been achieved, largely due to Huang's efforts. Conclusion: by the end of the process, the innovations had transformed the lives of roughly 2,000 people in Huang's village and 7,000 residents in nearby villages. They started cultivating rice, producing around 500,000 kilograms annually, and raising livestock. Today, the community boasts around 60 hectares of irrigated, fertile land. Thanks to one person, the life of the entire village has completely changed. People's quality of life has improved, and children began to get an education. Today, they have about 30 college graduates for every 100 families. However, to make the villagers happy, Huang deprived himself of a lot. He lost his daughter and other family members without even getting a chance to say goodbye to them, as he always had to be in the mountains working and overseeing the progress. He is now 83 years old and still goes to the mountains once in a while to check if the canal, which now bears his name, is working properly. This story shows that with focus and determination, nothing is impossible, even for a single person. It took 36 years for him to transform his village and conquer the mountain. So, do you believe that anyone has the power to change the course of history? Thank you for watching another episode of Just Discovery. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for updates on more exciting content. See you next time.